piglin bartering is overpowered and underpowered at the same time. It is overpowered because you get all these materials, and you used to get even more materials, which made some of the other farms unnecessary for the average player. But it is underpowered because if you're going after a specific resource, you need huge amounts of gold being essentially wasted on something you do not want, and you have to make use of many piglins to get the amount of items you want. It is a problem because Minecraft isn't particularly great at handling a decent amount of mobs. Not to mention, a gold farm required to fuel such a bartering system is going to be massive and laggy as well. So, I have a simple but very effective solution. Instead of bartering all these items, each individual piglin should have a fixed set of 1 to 4 traits randomly selected from that list when you do your first transaction. And you have to barter with each piglin individually to learn what it has to offer. With this system, a player can choose if they want to trade for one specific item, a handful of items, or for all of them. And for either choice, a player has to put in some work in order to obtain a good set of barters, rather than just throwing 5 random dudes into cells and calling it a day. This will also reduce the server lag, because with the current system, if you need 5000 quartz per hour, you will just throw more pig people at it. Why 1 to 4 items, you may ask? Let me explain. As I've said, a player could want to barter for either one of 3 options: one specific item, a handful of specific items, and most of items. But there is the second criteria. Are you going to make it efficient and make sure it doesn't produce any items you don't actually want? I believe most people will fall into this section. They want quartz, obsidian, green obsidian, gravel, and something extra on top, but they don't mind occasional string or iron nuggets. And if a piglin has 3 or 4 traits, it is very likely that 2 of them will be what an average player wants. But if you want just one specific resource and you want to make it lag efficient, you will go after piglins which barter one and only one item. And because those are usually technical people, they will probably come up with a contraption that will automatically sort out piglins like that. I want to address one point that someone will probably think about. You can just install a data pack that will change the bartering table to what you think is the best. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Unfortunately, if you're just a regular player, you have no control over server-side options and features. For example, there is game rule to Insomnia command which was added probably because developers have realized that some people consider phantoms as a bad addition to the game. However, instead of giving an individual player a solution to get rid of them permanently, you have to convince admins and or other players to disable them server-wide. And somebody might want to have them for some reason. Another example. I like mob switches, they're great, but if you are playing on a server, there is always someone who wants to run a mob farm. Hermitcraft has considered having one, but this is why they have decided against it. Another example is multiplayer sleep. You need to convince other players to have a one-player sleep data pack on a server, and if they won't listen, you have to deal with it being night half the time. This is a long topic and I still have plans to discuss this in the future in a whole video, but it might take a while, I don't have enough time for now. But in the end, I believe the game should give more options to individual players, not server admins. I already see you typing. If you want to have the experience you like, just play single player. But how about both? How about being able to play with friends, but being also able to condition your own play as you would like, without affecting other players who also play as they like? Bye bye.